So welcome along. This will probably be the first little video that you're seeing, so it's a bit of an introduction to ethics, the ethics component of our time together. Also, I'd like to point out that we're doing it on YouTube so that you can play at double speed as well. Hopefully that'll work out well. Okay, so ethics. The point of this particular video is to introduce us to ethics and ethics in business life. The first session or playlist that we'll be doing concentrates on explaining what ethics is and the difference between ethics and law. You know, why would we study ethics? How does it relate to law? Then we're going to go into two frameworks for thinking about ethics. We're going to deal with a consequentialist approach and a deontological approach, or a non-consequentialist Kantian approach, which focuses more on the process of what you do rather than the outcome. So why don't we get started by having a look at what our objectives are. As I was just saying, the first thing we want to do is explain the difference and similarities between ethics and the law. Then we're going to look at a consequentialist approach to ethics. How does a consequentialist decide whether something is ethical or not? Then we're going to look at Kant's non-consequentialist approach to an ethical action, so a different way of determining whether something's ethical, and we're going to apply both of those approaches to ethical issues in business. We're not going to work through examples here. That's something that you'll do on your own and in class, but we'll give the material here so that you can go back and work out how to do it. The first thing we're going to do is to look at what ethics is and how can we examine ethics. What is it we say we're doing when we actually study ethics? At its heart, ethics is trying to answer the questions about how to live a good life. What's the right decision that we actually want to make? Is it a good or bad decision? And is the person who makes it good or bad? So that's what ethics is all about, and it's sometimes called moral philosophy. You know, there's a really strong tradition of this moral philosophy being associated with business. In fact, the first well-known economist, Adam Smith, was actually a moral philosopher. Was his actually primary discipline because they didn't even have economics at that stage. So these issues of what's right, what's wrong, have been historically entwined with the study of business and economics. When we think about studying ethics, we can think about studying three different kinds of questions. The first one is called meta-ethics, and that's really saying, is there such a thing as ethics? Right? Is there an objective ethical framework? Are there moral facts, or is everything subjective? That's a very philosophical approach. Contrast that with descriptive ethics. With descriptive ethics, as the name implies, it's really trying to describe the reality of what's going on ethically. And if we can do that, describe what makes people do things, what factors encourage certain kinds of decisions, we can start to take action when we want to rectify those kinds of behaviours. So it answers questions like, what factors or what contexts actually encourage unethical behaviour in business. Finally, and this is where we're going to concentrate on this normative ethics. Normative ethics is about how should we act. Okay, so perhaps people should act in a certain way, but what do they do? If we're describing what they actually do, it's descriptive ethics. If it's about what they should do or some prescription about what they should do, then that is normative ethics. And as this particular slide shows, the real difference is about normative ethics being about what we ought to do rather than what we actually do. So rather than describing and explaining what people are doing, their thoughts and behaviours, which is what often sociologists, anthropologists and psychologists do, what we ought to do is quite different, or at least can be quite different. So this raises the question about why would we even be studying ethics in a business course? Well, there's lots of pressure to study it from outside forces, but let's put that aside. One of the biggest reasons is that you're going to run across certain decisions in which you're going to have a dilemma, right? You're going to have to make a decision that's hard. So consider this decision that we've got here. Mary's making a personal decision about whether to get additional medical treatment from her mother, who's suffering a lot of pain. But her mother's got dementia, so that means her mother can't make the decision for herself, and Mary has to. And we often have a power of attorney that we put in place legally to help us make this decision. So now Mary can make the decision. Should she stop treatment to minimise the pain, or continue treatment to keep her alive at all cost? How is she going to make that decision? What is the right decision? In a business context, it might be a decision about whether to lay some staff off to maintain profit levels. What's the right thing to do in these difficult situations? What ought we to do? And this is where we come up with and study ethical frameworks to help us make these kinds of decisions. So studying ethics can really help us try and solve these ethical dilemmas. Now notice this is about a dilemma. And by a dilemma, we mean there are reasons for doing it and reasons for not doing the particular action. If there were no reasons for and against, we don't actually have a dilemma, so these ethical frameworks won't help us too much. But in these really difficult things where we're torn about what we've got to do, ethical frameworks can help us think through these particular problems. The ethical dilemma posed on page 12 there, is that the slide's referring to, is where we've got someone who's worked her way up in a manufacturing company. There are 5 plants and there's rumours of layoffs. She's told in confidence by the manager that they are going to close a plant. It's not going to affect her job, but it is going to affect one of her good friends. And that good friend comes up to her and says, hey, so are these rumours true? Am I going to lose my job? Because I'm just about to buy a house and I don't want to go into that purchase if I'm going to lose my job. So can you tell me? So this creates a dilemma for the person. On the one hand, they've been asked not to spread this information. They were told it in confidence. And that's conflicting with her loyalty to a friend who she knows is about to make, a really bad decision because she doesn't know about it. How does she decide what to do in this particular situation? That's where normative ethics can help. It can provide this guidance as to what we should do or not do, or it at least provides the criteria or how we're going to make the decision. Even if it's not the actual decision itself, it gives us a way of thinking about the problem so that we can be more sure that we're happy with the decision that we're making. It also helps us to think beyond the immediate, beyond the surface intuitions about right and wrong, and think about what actually is a good life. Who do I want to be? What do I want to be like as I grow older and as I mature as a person? So I hope you can see that ethics actually is entwined with business. There'll be many times when we face decisions where we have conflicts. Our role in this course is not actually to propose that one way is the best way, but actually to give you tools to think about these ethical dilemmas. Whether it's about promoting a certain product in marketing, taking a certain approach to accounting figures when you're applying a standard, or how you treat employees if you're in HR or a general management position. So we're not going to advocate for a particular ethical stance. We're more trying to give you the tools and hopefully help you reflect on how do we actually make these decisions? How should we make these decisions? Now, most often, law and the ethics overlap to a great degree. But it's not always the case. So one of the ways we can think about it is as a little 2x2 matrix. So we can think of an act as either legal or illegal, right? And then we can think of something as either ethical or not ethical or unethical. Okay. Now, if something's legal and it's ethical, you're going to do it. If something's not ethical or unethical and illegal, then you're not going to do it, right? That's pretty clear cut, unless you're some kind of sociopath. Anyway, the big question marks come, what happens where something is ethical but illegal or legal but unethical? what do we do in those situations? Because they're not always the same thing. And in actual fact, in business, one of the things that we could do, which makes things even harder for people, is let's scrub out being legal and illegal, and let's replace this with make money and lose money. So if something's ethical and it makes money, you'll do it. If it's unethical and it loses money, you won't. What are you going to do when something's unethical, not illegal, but unethical and it makes you money? Or it's ethical and it's going to cost you money? How do we actually make these decisions? Because they're critical decisions for business if we want the kinds of businesses that support a good life. At a bare minimum, like we can look at what the law is, case law, statute, and determine whether something's illegal or illegal. But it still might not answer the question as to whether it's right or wrong, particularly in society's view or even our view. So normative ethical theories are one way to help us try and give a rational basis for this understanding and decision about what's right and wrong.